When you've got a great voice, people assume you can do it all. Maybe you've got the looks, maybe you've got the pipes. But Bob Dylan never cared about fitting that mold. For over 60 years, Dylan has been music's greatest mystery, a poet who rewrote the rules and refused to explain himself. Yet, when the subject turns to the Beatles, something remarkable happens. His guard slips. The myth becomes human. Dylan watched the Beatles rise and dominate America from afar, admiring what they built even as he carved his own trail through uncharted territory. "I loved all his gospel songs too," Dylan once said. Meeting him was a real thrill, a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Folk, rock, blues, gospel, Dylan mastered them all. But there were certain Beatles songs that stayed with him, tracks that spoke a language he instantly understood. These 5 songs weren't the obvious hits, not these anthems that defined generations or the avant-garde landmarks that critics still dissect. These were the ones that moved him, songs that proved melody and meaning could share the same heartbeat. Some opened new creative doors for him. Others reaffirmed truths he already knew. But all 5 earned Dylan's respect, something he never gave lightly. So, let's uncover Bob Dylan's 5 favorite Beatles songs, the tracks that even made the poet himself stop, listen, and nod in approval. Norwegian Wood, some songs don't just open doors, they build entire new rooms. There would be no music without the words, Dylan once said. When Norwegian Wood dropped in 1965, it felt like a quiet revolution. George Harrison's sitar brought an exotic, meditative atmosphere into Western pop, while John Lennon's lyrics said everything by saying almost nothing. It was a story about an affair, but never openly. Every line hinted, rather than declared, "I once had a girl," or should I say, "she once had me." That kind of ambiguity, where meaning hides between the lines, was Dylan's territory. He'd been doing it for years in folk clubs. But the Beatles brought it to millions. They were learning, Dylan once remarked. Rare praise from a man who rarely handed it out. The sitar wasn't decoration. It gave purpose, depth, and mood. It marked the moment the Beatles stopped being just another pop band and became artists. What Dylan admired most was the final line. "So I lit a fire. Isn't it good, Norwegian Wood?" Did he burn the furniture, the apartment, or simply light a cozy fire? It never tells you, because great art doesn't need to. It trusts you to fill in the blanks. This song taught Dylan something profound, that you could be both strange and commercial. That popular music didn't have to mean simplicity. It could be poetic, mysterious, and still reach the masses. That was the moment Dylan knew the Beatles were now speaking his language. "I Want to Hold Your Hand." You wouldn't think innocence could impress a cynic like Bob Dylan, but this song did. When "I Want to Hold Your Hand" hit the airwaves in late 1963, it was pure unfiltered joy. I want to hold your hand, no metaphors, no irony, just truth, while Dylan was writing complex, political songs that dove into the darker corners of life. The Beatles were celebrating the most basic human need: touch, connection, affection. It shouldn't have worked. But it did. Dylan saw what others missed: sincerity. He later said, "They meant it." And that's what made the song powerful. 4 young men singing with complete conviction, their harmonies tighter than ever. Their energy impossible to fake. Paul's bass strutted confidently. George's guitar rang like a bell, and those famous "yeah, yeahs" became the sound of an entire generation. Dylan knew he could never write a song like that. His world was darker, more layered, more cynical. But he admired that purity, the way the Beatles captured something simple yet enormous. It reminded him that truth doesn't always need complexity. Sometimes honesty alone moves mountains. A day in the life. If ambition had a sound, it would sound like A Day in the Life. Released on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in 1967, it didn't just break rules, it rewrote them. 2 songs fused into one, connected by an orchestral explosion that felt like the world collapsing into art. John's detached verses felt like a man reading the news in a dream. "I read the news today. Oh boy." That casual tone before tragedy. That's something Dylan had mastered. Paul's section then jolts you awake, a rush of daily life, of buses, cigarettes, and routine. And then back again to Lennon's surreal calm, closing with that legendary 43-second piano chord, fading into infinity. They were fearless, Dylan said, and he meant it. The Beatles weren't just writing songs anymore. They were redefining what a song could be, mixing beauty and chaos, poetry and absurdity, the cosmic and the ordinary. It asked questions it never answered, about death, meaning, and the absurdity of life. That mystery was exactly what Dylan loved, she said. She said, "This track is darkness wrapped in melody, something few bands ever pull off." Recorded during the Revolver sessions in 1966, this song came from a strange LSD-fueled conversation between John Lennon and actor Peter Fonda, who kept saying, "I know what it's like to be dead. Creepy? Maybe." But Lennon turned that eerie thought into haunting beauty. Dylan loved its offbeat structure, the shifting time signatures, the disorienting rhythm, the way nothing quite fit, and yet everything made sense. It felt like reality bending, just the kind of beautiful chaos Dylan respected. George's guitar answered John's vocals like a conversation. Paul's bass danced unpredictably. Ringo's drumming kept it all from flying apart. They weren't afraid to be strange, Dylan observed, coming from him. That was the highest compliment possible. The Beatles had learned how to make the weird sound beautiful, and Dylan knew exactly how difficult that was. "I'm a loser." Honesty doesn't need fancy production. It just needs truth. When "I'm a Loser" appeared on Beatles for Sale in 1964, Dylan noticed instantly. This wasn't just another catchy pop tune. It was John Lennon cracking open his armor. "I'm a loser and I'm not what I appear to be." In that one line, Dylan heard something real: vulnerability, doubt, humanity. Lennon later admitted he was trying to write like Dylan, more personal, more honest, with folk-inspired simplicity and confessional lyrics. And Dylan approved. It was brave. The Beatles were expected to smile, to be perfect. But Lennon admitted he wasn't. That honesty transformed him from pop star to artist. The melody was stripped down and direct. The harmonies soft yet powerful. Every instrument existed to serve the words. Dylan knew this was the moment Lennon stopped performing for the world and started writing from his soul.
Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.